Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Dennis Heil, and I am diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder with severe depression and high-functioning autism. I've been living with bipolar disorder for over 30 years, 15 of which I spent undiagnosed. In 2009, I experienced a depressive psychotic break that led to my diagnosis of type 2 bipolar disorder. I would be diagnosed with autism a few years later. In my podcast, Bluntly Bipolar, I'm going to share with you my experiences and the hard lessons I've learned trying to find some peace and happiness in my life. I hope that by sharing my experiences, others can avoid learning these lessons the hard way. I'm not a mental health professional. I have no qualifications or certifications. All I am is a mental patient with a microphone. You can find Bluntly Bipolar at bluntlybipolar.com or about any podcast distribution service. Expect new episodes on the first and third Thursday of every month. Listener discretion is advised for heavy topics related to mental health, including suicide, self-harm, and more. This is episode 2, The Secret to Happiness. I'm going to tell you the secret to happiness, and I'm not even going to charge you for it. There is no secret. There is no easy fix or life hack. There is no simple answers. The secret to happiness is just a sales pitch. I'm not a philosopher or a theologian. What I am is a person who's worked in digital and content marketing as a copywriter for almost 20 years now. And I've been writing for maybe 35 years or so. Now, the first 5 years that I worked in this field, I did a lot of shady and unethical things that could be boiled down to selling happiness to unhappy people. It's something I now regret doing, but maybe you can learn from my bad choices. Now, I've lived with severe bipolar depression for about 30 years now. And I remember my first screening appointment when I was 29. My social worker asked me, when was the last time I felt happy? And I couldn't remember a time. I thought back to all the times I should have been happy, like the 2 times I got engaged to wonderful women, or landed a new job, or had a new opportunity. And I realized none of it really felt good. Like, are you supposed to feel good when these things happen? When you accomplish things? Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Instead, I felt bitter, angry, and empty, because bipolar depression was smothering everything good and positive in me. The last time I could remember being genuinely happy was when I was about 12 years old, right before my bipolar depression set in. I actually enjoyed things. I used to love baseball and fishing. I liked collecting cards and being outdoors. But then the depression swept in and all that slowly started to drown in the abyss. I still had hobbies and did things, but looking back on it, I realized I didn't actually enjoy doing a lot of the things I did, or the enjoyment I was able to get out of it was so fleeting that it was gone almost as soon as it arrived. Then I had hobbies that I would throw myself into as an unhealthy coping mechanism, like too much World of Warcraft and video games and role-playing games, because if I was thinking about grinding for a piece of gear, or recruiting a rogue that wouldn't trigger Flame Wreath, or writing a story, then I wasn't thinking about my life or what was going on in my head. On top of that, I don't experience euphoria when I escalate into hypomania. Instead of feeling bright, I feel more like a speeding train, intense and powerful, with a heavy dash of anger, resentment, and mild paranoia. The emotion of happy was a foreign concept to me for a long, long time. I remember feeling so much resentment, particularly for happy people having a good time, because I couldn't feel those emotions. But I also resented the people who still had the mental and emotional energy to at least fake it. I couldn't even muster that kind of energy most of the time. And combine that with the social dysfunction of autism, and it was just too much, way too often. Everywhere you look, someone is selling happiness. There's religion. I grew up in Methodist Christianity. Nothing too hardcore, but still the general theme of follow the rules, ask for forgiveness, and you'll go to heaven. A place where there are no more terrible things, no misery, no suffering, no sickness, and everyone you love and have been missing will be waiting for you. It sounds beautiful. And you know what? I sincerely hope that's the way it is. I sincerely hope that for every one of you out there that are missing someone and hoping to see them again, that you'll get that. I hope that you'll find the love, peace, resolution that you hope and you pray for, whatever your faith. But on the other hand, I know a sales pitch when I hear it. Have you ever heard the phrase, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is? That's true about 99% of the time in my experience. It's been the very, very rare occasion when it hasn't been. Shady people looking to sell happiness co-opted so much in spiritual and religious spaces, like gurus, televangelists, and prosperity preachers. Karma is another good example. If you do good, then good things will come back to you, and you'll be happy. Just follow these rules. And if you don't take the time to dive into where it comes from, then it's easy to get swept up in the westernized version of karma, where good is rewarded and evil is punished, while ignoring the greater context of samsara, or the life and death cycles associated with Buddhism and Hinduism. Similarly, you have the self-help industry. Now, there are people in that industry that are genuinely trying to help others in their own way. Not every life coach, consultant, or guru is narcissistic, shady, or superficial. But there are plenty who know that they are just selling happiness to sad people. Because there's nothing easier to sell, really. It's something everyone wants. I've spent years trying to think of an appropriate metaphor to communicate just how easy it is to sell happiness. And the closest thing I could come up with is that selling happiness is like selling heroin to addicts. But selling happiness is much easier. I mean, if you want a deal, you got to know some people. They have to trust you, then you also have to deal with the potential for getting jailed, robbed, stabbed, or shot for what you got. Plus, navigating people who are dope sick isn't necessarily a picnic. But to sell happiness, all you need to do is look happy and have a product to point at and say, I'm happy and this is what made me happy. You could be happy too. Just buy my book, sign up for my newsletter, attend my speaking event, come to my happiness retreat, hire me to speak. Blah, blah, blah. It's all the same bullshit, just different flavors. Now, when it comes to selling happiness, there are ethical and unethical ways to do it. The ethical way is to be fair and honest about what you're selling. So, for example, consider a travel agent. Their advertising tells you to relax, let them handle the accommodations and planning for you so they can create a memorable trip that you're going to remember for a lifetime. That's not an unfair sales pitch when you consider how impactful traveling is for so many people. Travel makes a lot of people happy and creates good memories they'll have for the rest of their lives. On the other hand, you have the unethical way. The unethical way to sell happiness is to hang happiness in the sky like a distant star. You point at it and say, it's there, waiting for you. All you have to do is buy this ladder and you can reach it. But the trick is to hang it out of reach of the ladder, so you always have something more to sell. Oh, that ladder's not tall enough? You need this exclusive deluxe ladder. Yeah, it's a bit more expensive, but you want to be happy, don't you? Oh, I'm sorry. No returns on that first ladder you bought, though. And in doing so, you convert that non-participant into a participant, or sale. Now, the word convert in the marketing space is used to describe the act of causing someone to do what you want them to do. That could be buying a product, signing up for an email, believing in a social cause, adopting a religion, signing a petition, showing up for a protest, anything that would take you from being a non-believer to a believer, a non-participant to a participant, or a potential customer to a paying customer. Inaction to action. Multi-level marketing, or MLMs, is one of the easier examples to understand. Now, if you don't know what multi-level marketing is, it's had a variety of rebrandings over the years as laws and public perceptions have shifted to keep the average person from dialing into what's going on. It's had titles like multi-level marketing, direct or referral selling, network marketing, and good old-fashioned pyramid schemes. It all depends on the level of legality that they're skirting. Now, consider the target audience of an MLM. In many cases, it's people who are unhappy in some way. They're not necessarily financially educated or secure. They likely don't know how to properly evaluate information, and so it makes it easy to manipulate them. It's easy to hang a distant star in the sky for those people to reach for. And you may be thinking, well, how can you make that assumption about those people? It's not an assumption. It's demographic data and research that corporations spend billions of dollars collecting and understanding to best understand how to get you to convert. Everyone with an agenda does it. So, you use happiness-based sales pitches. Do you want to be financially independent, out of debt, work only a few hours a day making posts on social media or selling products? Do you want to provide for your family, your kids? in this economy where you have to work 2 jobs and side hustle to pay rent? Or maybe you're lonely because once you sign up and join this little family we have here, your sponsor is going to help you out every step of the way. And you can have fun building your business and selling these products to your friends and family while you develop more clients. You can be part of a group that will actually care about your success because we believe in you. I mean, that sounds pretty awesome, doesn't it? You mean to tell me I could have fun making money on my own time with my own business at my own pace with help from people who know what they're doing and achieve financial freedom? Well, where do I sign up? Or maybe that's not enough to convince you. Maybe instead you're almost there, but not quite. So you sweeten the deal to make it more attractive by offering free stuff, materials, trainings, products, discounts on fees, rewards, coupons, or anything that can make a person go, wow, that's amazing. I need to get in on this. Sign-on bonuses, referral bonuses. Look at how easy it is to make money. Again, selling happiness, safety, security. But there's a problem, because in all that sales pitch, if you're not knowledgeable enough to know the details to see what information is missing, then you're missing important context. And what is that context? Well, the fact that all the different facets of what could make a person successful in network marketing are all time-consuming jobs in general. People who have not worked in sales do not understand how challenging sales can be. You cannot build a business off of the pity of your friends and family, and certainly not a business that sells the overpriced products or services that a lot of these MLMs are peddling. There are hurdles, called objections, that stand between the customer and agreeing to a final sale. And to make the sale, the salesperson needs to figure out what objections the customer has and address them. The first step of that process is to develop qualified leads. Now, qualified lead is someone who is interested in your product and can afford to buy it. Now, for example, let's say I'm a car salesman. When you come to the store and walk in the front door, I can safely assume that you're in the market to buy a car. Otherwise, why would you be there? From there, now I have to figure out what your objections are, and that's where the conversation and questions start coming in. What will you be using it for? What make, model? Can you be qualified for this loan? Does it have the options you want? Any of these things and more can be objections. For example, let's say I have the perfect car for you. Make, model, options, but the car is blue and you really wanted red. Well, if you're looking to spend $25,000 on a car, that's a major sticking point because what do you mean I spent all that money and I'm reminded I didn't get the car I really wanted every time I walk out to my driveway because I really wanted that red car. So you want your red car, and reasonably so. Now from there, as a salesperson, I have options. Maybe I could offer to get the car painted, or make a special order from the manufacturer, or hunt around the area to find a red version from another dealership. There are plenty of ethical ways to overcome objections, but you actually have to know how to do it, how to get at the information that's holding the customer back. You have to know how to take someone down your sales funnel, overcome each objection until every red light in their head turns green, and they finally commit to the conversion. Now, circling back to MLM sales. The initial pitch they most often give is to start by selling to your friends and family. But what they don't tell you is that your friends and family don't want to buy overpriced products and services that they don't need. They may do it to help you out, but most aren't going to be a repeat customer out of anything other than guilt and obligation. And the manipulators within the MLM know that. Once that happens, then you start hearing messaging like, why doesn't your family believe in your business? Do they think you're incapable, incompetent? You're not. We believe in you. You're a boss, and you're going to show them how successful you can be, right? Let me help you by recommending this book for you to buy. Developing qualified leads is a full-time job in itself because you have to figure out who your target demographic is, where you can find them, if they can afford to buy the products, if they even want the product, and then you have to actually get their attention so you can attempt to make a sale. Does that sound really time-consuming? Because it is. It's a lot of work, and it's nothing that you're going to do for a couple hours a day in your free time and get anywhere. Now let's look back at the dangling star in the sky. You go to your sponsor and say, I can't seem to make many sales. I've sold 1 or 2 things to a couple family members and friends, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, the answer to that is obviously work smarter, not harder. Let me recommend you this book to read. Sign up for this email from our company that will give you tips. Get on this Zoom call where we're going to be talking strategy. Listen to this podcast. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Oh, did you hear about the company-sponsored cruise? You're coming to that, right? You'll be able to learn so much from our top performers who will be speaking. Maybe it'll be you someday. Now, hypothetically, that could also look like an accomplished executive in a company who happens to hire writers with questionable morals and ethics to hypothetically assist in ghostwriting books on how to succeed at direct sales marketing to sell to people in the lower levels of a hypothetical MLM. Said hypothetical books are about 50% decent information and 50% sales pitch to buy the next product. And that executive and his friends would all hypothetically hype each other's books up to sell to the people in their organizations. Only hypothetically, of course, because we wouldn't want anyone getting sued, would we? You've been tricked into the sponsor's sales funnel, and they're sniffing out your objections to get you to buy more things, invest more of your time, and give more of yourself to them, all with a promise of happiness at the end of the path, once you can touch that distant star. They set you up to fail from the beginning by making it seem like marketing and sales is an easy thing to do, and that anyone can do it with minimal effort. Then when you fall short, they tell you to keep reaching for that star. You're almost there. I believe in you. You'll get it. Just buy more of our stuff, attend more conferences and cruises, listen to the podcast, subscribe to the newsletter, and so on. And so happiness is commodified, packaged up, and sold to the unhappy. Now let me tell you the truth about the appearance of happiness. And I say appearance because appearance is what people focus on. I had the privilege to be good friends with two women. Bright shining lights for other people. Women who wanted to prop other people up and make them feel good and happy. The first was a woman who I met shortly after I was diagnosed, and she was helping to facilitate a support group I was attending. Always bright, always shining, always happy, and completely dead inside after losing her son to suicide. She always wore a smile, poured into everyone else and only to carry her pain. But because she wanted anyone who might be thinking that way to see a smile, and maybe that would give them a flicker of hope to live. A flicker she felt her son never got. And the second was actually someone I dated for a while. Bright and shiny, extroverted, always gassing people up, known as the fun girl. But God forbid she ever had a bad day or struggled. Very few people cared to try to lighten her load or even stop to listen. She wasn't carrying anything as heavy and severe as a loss by suicide, but so many people around her used her as an emotional battery for their own happiness. So unless you took the time to sit down and actually know either of these women or listen to them, you'd never know how unhappy they were. One from the loss of her son, and the other from very few people actually seeing her genuine self, and not just the fun girl who was everyone else's emotional battery. Now, before I continue, I want to once again remind you that what I'm about to explain is about how I've come to understand how I function through my recovery. So take this with a grain of salt, and remember that I'm just a mental patient with a microphone. I've come to associate climate and weather as the perfect metaphor for my moods and emotions. My mood is like a climate, and emotions are the weather that occur within that climate. So consider a desert. In a desert, I can expect hot days, little rain, cold nights, and maybe some frost in the mornings. That's the weather I can expect when going into a desert because that's how that climate works. I can then at least make some basic preparations for going into that climate because I know the potential weather. Now consider depression. In depression, the weather I can expect includes numbness, agitation, anger, hopelessness, emptiness, and all other manner of negative emotions. But what kind of weather don't I typically find in depression? Well, happiness, brightness, and hope. And if that kind of weather does pop up, it doesn't stick around for long because that weather just doesn't last in the climate of depression, or if it does, it's very fleeting. Now, a big step in my recovery was to improve the overall climate of my mind as much as I could, because I know that happiness is not a weather that will manifest in depression. People who aren't living with the weight of mental illness or trauma can much more easily alter the climate of their mind. That's where you get statements like happiness is a choice or just think positively. They say those things because they can actually work for people who don't have such a dark mental climate. Instead of drawing in the negative, they focus on the positive and it can boost their moods, their mental climate, and they're able to be happier. Now, on the other hand, when I would try to do that stuff, it would just build more anger, frustration, and resentment until I basically drowned in a flash flood of anger, sadness, and emptiness. Never camp in the low spots or dry riverbeds in a desert. Once you start healing, progressing, and your mental climate starts improving, you can then start expecting new and different weather. So, for example, let's say I improve my depression to a more positive state, and the climate of my mind is improving. Well, what kind of weather will I experience there? Well, happiness, joy, interest, hope, positive things. And here's where I find that folks get off track most often. Happiness is temporary. It's an emotion, it's weather, and it will come and go, much like rain or snow. You're not going to feel happy or positive all the time. Now, some people are more positive or happier than others, and that's okay. But you don't want to waste your life wondering why you can't be as happy as another person appears to be. You'll waste your time trying to be happy like them. And trying to be happy like them makes you susceptible to sales pitches. The better goal is to figure out how to make yourself as happy as possible in a way that resonates with you. Now, in my case, I feel either chill or happy more often than not. But other people tend to question that a lot because I'm autistic and I have like 90% flat effect, meaning my emotions that I feel in my brain do not transfer to my face. So I can be 100% having a great time, yet look like I'm completely miserable if I'm not thinking about masking and projecting body language, which happens when I feel relaxed and happy. So I may physically appear miserable even if I'm having a good time. Life is hard, and there are a lot of painful things going on all the time. It's hard to keep your brain out of the abyss when you're going through those hard times. And for those of us who have brains that don't function correctly, we may need additional support like medication or therapy. Now, if you have bipolar disorder or chronic depression, you must understand that happiness is not the opposite of depression. Depression is a climate, not an emotion. Sadness is an emotion. Emptiness is an emotion. But depression is a climate, so it affects all of the weather that happens within it. It's intense in its emptiness and force because it is a climate, so happiness has a hard time peeking through the storm clouds. On the other hand, you have the symptom of euphoria that can happen in bipolar escalation. That is hypomania or mania. And if you've been mentally ill for a long time, you may look at that and say, yes, euphoria, that's happiness, because that is just as bright and intense as my depression is dark and soul-crushing. But it's not happiness, it's euphoria. It's mental illness. In spite of it feeling amazing, it's not good because other symptoms come with it that people kind of gloss over and don't talk about as much. And in the bipolar community, you regularly hear people romanticize their euphoria. Oh, I felt called to go backpack in Southeast Asia, so I picked up my life and I went on the whim to follow my heart because I am a free spirit. But here's the problem. They're not always telling the whole truth, or they may not understand what kind of harm that cycle is doing not only to them, but to their loved ones. They don't mention the part where they quit their job, racked up $20,000 in credit card debt, and cleared out their bank account, leaving their spouse and child behind with no money for the mortgage or food. Circumstances like that happen because bipolar escalation often comes with symptoms like poor impulse control and delusion. You might have someone who's lost in their own wellness, experiencing euphoria, and they meet their soulmate, the love of their life, their one and only. Right, but they already married their soulmate, the love of their life, their one and only. Right up until this cycle started. They used to have a loving, healthy, wonderful relationship until that betrayal. But because romantic love is rooted in physical processes of your brain, mental illness can twist it, warp it, distort it, or in extreme cases, manufacture false love out of thin air. Not because they don't genuinely love their spouse, but because so many people buy into the fairy tale that love conquers all, and that doesn't. Mental illness can make you believe or do terrible things that are entirely out of character. You'd never choose to do if you're mentally well. People that think, if they really love me, they wouldn't have done that, just don't understand how foreign and alien your own brain can be when you have a mental illness. Once upon a time, I knew someone whose husband developed schizoaffective disorder. Schizoaffective disorder is a difficult mental illness combining elements of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. He struggled with his diagnosis, kept going on and off antipsychotics until finally one day it escalated. He had his wife in a rage while he was unstable, and almost immediately understood what he did right after that. She told me he begged for forgiveness, locked himself in their spare bedroom, and ended himself. They'd been happily married for the better part of 2 decades up to that point. He was a music teacher and well loved by his family, friends, and students. Raising his hand in anger isn't something he ever would have done had he not been unwell, and certainly not to his wife, who he cherished. Another mistake that some tend to make is trying to get the benefits of bipolar escalation and euphoria without the downsides. They want to feel the amazingness of euphoria without the other negative symptoms that come along with it. And that's not how that works. That's like saying, I want to feel amazing by smoking meth without the downsides of blowing out the pleasure receptors in my brain, addiction, potential psychosis, physical health problems, and mental health problems that can go along with it. And if you think that's an extreme analogy that doesn't make sense, you have to consider how much long-term damage our mental illness causes us to do to ourselves. The expected natural lifespan of people with bipolar disorder is about 10 years lower than average because of it, among other things. By trying to ride bipolar escalation like that, you're always taking a very big risk because you're in control until you're not, and you may not realize that you're not in control until it's way too late. Or, to call back to that analogy, sure, you may not have had a psychotic break the first time you smoke meth, but that doesn't mean you won't the next time. And you have no way to know. Bipolar escalation, mania, hypomania, euphoria, these things are not happiness. But how can you tell the difference? Well, euphoria is intense, and happiness is not. Happiness is quiet. Happiness is like sitting next to a low campfire on a cool autumn night, feeling comforting warmth coming off the fire. Or maybe like the sun on your face on a pleasant summer day. Euphoria, on the other hand, is more like staring directly into the sun. It's intense, it's brilliant, it's energetic, it's explosive, it can feel blinding. It is anything but quiet. Additionally, you may run into an issue where you may be afraid to feel happy because you think it may be a symptom of escalation. Now, typically, bipolar unwell cycles last a while, assuming the person isn't rapid cycling. So there are a couple of things I look for to tell the difference. First, I know that happiness is just weather of my mind. It's going to change. It comes and goes. I know I will experience other emotions relatively soon, like within a few days at most. In escalation, it's so bright that it drowns out other emotions. So if I were to still feel amazing, even if something bad happened, then I would be suspicious I was experiencing euphoria. Second, when I find myself feeling happy or good, I start doing more regular check-ins with myself to gauge my mental state. I look for other symptoms of my escalation. So for example, a change in my sex drive, not sleeping as much, experiencing anxiety and paranoia. If I find any of those things together, I'm confident saying it's not happiness, it's probably unwellness. Third, and this is something I've noticed in others more than myself because I don't experience euphoria hardly ever, is that bipolar unwellness often moves with intensity. They don't doubt that something is wrong. Instead, they just know that they feel amazing, life is amazing, everything is amazing, and that's it. There's no doubt. Everything is amazing. So if you have doubt or you're afraid, that's a good sign that you're just feeling emotions rather than experiencing an unwell cycle. In my opinion, the first step on the path to happiness was to improve the climate of my mind. And you will probably need professional help for that because you need to figure out and address why the climate of your mind is so dark or erratic. And a professional can make that process so much more efficient by introducing you to modalities and strategies that have helped thousands of other people improve their own mental health. If you have unaddressed trauma, untreated or uncontrolled bipolar disorder, depression, difficult life circumstances, living in poverty or an abusive relationship, all of these things and more can make the climate of your mind dark and stormy. There is no universal, one single, easy answer. The answer is different for every single person, and you're the only one that can find it and address it because mental health professionals can't read your mind. They don't fix you. They give you tools to help you fix and manage yourself, but they can only do that if you're willing to show them the darkest parts of you, the pieces of you that you don't want to talk about to anyone. For example, if you were abused as a child and you never talk about it to anyone, that kind of thing will cause constant storms, and you'll struggle with happiness until you address those deep wounds. Cynical people like to dismiss the past as the cause of present problems, while completely ignoring the fact that trauma affects brain development and the way it functions. The brain developed in a way to survive that stressful environment, and that follows you into adulthood in a bunch of ways, like with CPTSD, PTSD, personality disorders, and repeating bad patterns and habits that you witnessed while growing up. There is no secret to happiness. In the regular world, it's usually just a sales pitch to get you to sign on to some belief or to spend your money. Alternatively, if you're in the mental health space, there's a better than average chance they might be high, delusional, or manic, and 100% believe that they've unlocked the secrets of the universe. Which has always been like a weird thing to me, because I would think that feeling one with the universe would be like a Lovecraftian, terrifying experience. When you think of how much misery and suffering is in the world, to feel interconnected that way, you would think it would drive someone insane almost instantly. But what the hell do I know? I digress. Talk to a therapist if you're able to, or make that a goal. That's the first step on what's likely to be a challenging journey. But you can make it, and you can recover. But you're going to have to be brave and open up the darkest parts of you, so a trained professional can empower you to improve and help you heal. Mental health professionals do not fix us. We fix ourselves with their help, and you have the power to do that too, regardless of what your brain trauma or depression tells you. I 100% believe that every single person has the ability to improve the climate of their mind if they had appropriate access to resources, support, and professional help. Not that everyone will, mind you, but that many of us have the ability to improve. It may not be perfect. There are some issues that you can't fix exactly, but many of them can be improved if you're willing to take the risk, put in the work. I will always have bipolar disorder, and it's looking like I'll be living with depression in some flavor for probably the rest of my life. But the climate of my mind is so vastly improved now where I'm actually glad to still be here to share this with you, as opposed to how I used to feel. And because we live in a consumer-based society, we've all been conditioned to look at the bright, shiny things as a path to happiness. The new car, the high-paying job, the big diamond engagement ring, the wise guru, the smiling face with the sales pitch, women. If you spend your time looking at all the shiny objects in the sky that have been hung there for you to reach for, then you can accidentally train your brain to ignore what's around you that could give you some happy weather for a little while. That's where practices like mindfulness and gratitude enter the equation. They help counter that overall conditioning that we've had shoved down our throats since birth. They help you train your brain to find pleasure and joy in the present moment, rather than focusing on the idea that you'll be happy once you get this item or accomplish this goal. And sure, it might make you happy for a little while. Money certainly does buy happiness, safety, security, and fucking healthcare. But I can actually find happiness and pleasure now, all around me in mundane things, because I've learned to stop looking at the shiny objects. I like being able to feel happy by listening to birds sing, or feeling a warm summer breeze on my face, or appreciating the beauty of a fresh snow. I like being able to experience happiness from creating or for a job well done. But those are things I couldn't see or appreciate when I was drowning in my mental illness. And they're going to be hard for you to see too if you've been living with depression or trauma for a long time, because it darkens the climate of your mind so much. And over the years, one of the most common sentiments I've heard from others like me is, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. That's all. Is that so much to ask for? Yes, it is. Because just being happy is not a realistic goal. It's a black and white statement that understands your own success, because no one is always happy. And if you want evidence for that, why are there so many philosophies and religions that have been trying to figure out happiness for thousands of years? It's because there's no answer. No singular answer. Although you can see a lot of similarities once you start reading enough. No, the actual goal that I would reach for first is peace of mind, so that I can experience the appropriate emotions at the appropriate times. I don't want to just feel happy. I want the full human experience. I want to be able to feel sad when bad things happen and not have my mental illness tell me to end myself. I want to be angry when I see something wrong and not feel irrationally rageful or swing into hypomania over it. I want to be able to feel pain when I feel hurt, not drown in emptiness, substance abuse, or my urge to self-harm to cope. I want to be mentally and emotionally healthy enough to sit with my negative emotions, love them, love myself, and let them pass. Because that's what mental wellness looks like. The human experience is not just about happiness, because all things end, sooner or later. It's about the peace of your mind. Because once you can improve the climate in your mind, it gets so much easier to navigate the painful and difficult parts of the world. It makes it easier to not lose hope in the face of injustice and unfairness, to not be broken down in subservience to your mind, or evil people, or consumerism, or any of these other things that want to exploit your misery. Normal negative emotions are good and healthy. They are a cue that your brain is sending you that something is wrong, and that you need to change what's causing that negative emotion. But like with anything, too much can be a bad thing. Now, if I could go back to day one of my diagnosis, I would tell myself to not make happiness a goal. Instead, make my first goal peace of mind. Peace of mind is the fertile soil where you plant the seeds of happiness. So don't make the mistake of thinking that once you get properly medicated or address your trauma that you're just going to be happy after that. Because there's a good chance you won't be. You may need to do further work to empower yourself to feel the emotions that you're supposed to. And you could do it, but it's very unlikely that you're going to figure it out on your own. Talk therapy is the best place to start working on that. And if you feel like that's impossible, or things have been so bad for you, or it's not even a relatable concept, don't approach the situation with a closed mind. I couldn't see it either because I spent so much time sitting in the abyss. I was undiagnosed for 15 years with multiple suicide attempts and all other manner of terrible things that I used to try to get through or suffered when I was overwhelmed. It was impossible for me to conceptualize because I had been depressed for such a long time. Like asking a blind person what the color red looks like. Just work toward it with the help of your professionals and whatever support you can find. Keep walking forward. Because there's nothing that I did that you can't do too. I'm not special. I use the same tools as thousands of other people and mental health professionals provide to improve. And you can do that too. It may not be perfect, but I very much believe that everyone can be better than you are today. Thank you for spending your time with me. If you like what you heard, subscribe and share it with someone who you think it might help.